So with Jeepers Creepers Reborn now officially in the history books, we finally now get to see what things would actually be like if the original director and the man behind the creation behind Jeepers Creepers was no longer a part of the franchise. And despite whether or not you have Victor on the team or not, to the unfortunate displeasure of many people, it turns out yet again we got another horrible Jeepers Creepers film. And I understand that some people may come out openly to say that this was in fact far worse than Jeepers Creepers 3. I think that topic in and of itself is up for debate, but I also want to say that with this movie, with this overall franchise and the property that we have, when it involves such a unique creature like the Creeper, it's kind of hard to imagine that they would go this far in messing things up and delivering a piss poor quality film. So from the beginning, I will say that the opening acts of this movie was, dare I say, the only best thing about this film, because from the beginning, you kind of have this very dystopic, dark atmosphere surrounding a very old couple that just so happened to have been driving down one of the Louisiana roads, which again is very eerily reminiscent to one of the earlier Easter eggs from Jeepers Creepers 1, as Trish and Derry were basically talking about how there was this couple that had gone missing many years ago, blah blah blah. And as this film progressed, it was just so painful to sit through in seeing as to how the movie was getting worse and worse and worse all the way up towards its end, because although I understand this movie had to have been delayed, of course, due to the virus that had destroyed the entire world for the last 2 years and everything in between, but even then, when looking at the Creeper, when looking at the overall narrative, the Creeper in this film was basically a celebrity. Everybody knew about the Creeper, everybody knew about its slumber and how it tends to come back every 23 springs and it tends to eat for 23 days, stuff like that. So this now ultimately begs the question as to where do we go from here, only because they go as far as to insinuate that this movie is within the same verse as the other 3 films to some extent, right? But at the same time, how is it that if this is supposed to be a film in which takes place in the same verse, that the Creeper in this film is a total jobber by comparison to the Creeper of the older films? And what I mean by that is, obviously we know that Jonathan Breck did not reprise his role as the Creeper in this film. So after realizing this, you kind of go as far as to miss Jonathan Breck, because whoever was portraying the Creeper in this film had made the Creeper stand out in such a piss poor way to where you can't take him seriously, especially when the Creeper was walking around, when he was trying to, I guess, be intimidating towards the survivors before having to hunt them down, in which all in all, the Creeper in and of itself, by comparison to Jonathan Breck's version of the Creeper, was not terrifying at all. Now, is this movie possibly the worst movie in history? Absolutely not. However, I think it's safe to say that this movie is by no means anywhere near being an A-list film by comparison to some of the other classics. So with the way they had this cult worship the Creeper and to have the main protagonist kind of have similar abilities to that of Giselle from the first movie, it was kind of a callback to that, I would say. But at the same time, if we're not going to be involving the comics, in which in the comics we understand and see and know that the Creeper in many ways was regarded to as being a dragon god, and even back during the older days had worshippers and followers and people that even devoted themselves in giving up offerings to the Creeper. But we're living in the modern times. This is no longer the era of the Mayans, the Aztecs, and the Incas and stuff like that, but yet at the same time, we have this cult that's in this little town offering stranded souls to the Creeper in order for the Creeper to feast. But what kind of benefits do they get out of this if they were to do that, right? Because none of that was explained. But even then, when going back to some of the older Jeepers Creepers films, the Creeper came across as being an entity that he never gave off that vibe that he ever could have worked with anybody, or at least compensated with a group of individuals that just so happened to have given him an offering per se, because the Creeper looks like he acts alone, and well, that's what made him vicious, that's what made him dangerous, that's what made him sinister, right? But in this film, it almost goes as far as to kind of suggest that there is a cult that worships him and follow him and do whatever it is that he says. But what are the benefits going to be for the cult members if they're going to go as far as to do this for the Creeper? What, are they going to gain some kind of immunity from him? You know what I mean? So a lot of these things were kind of weird in a sense where the Creeper now was specifically only after one character because she was pregnant, and so I guess for whatever reason they wanted the creeper to live on forever by consuming the child, which again is something we've seen be done in many other films. So why did this have to be the case for a movie like this, where the creeper really doesn't have a bias as to who he goes for? So as long as he smells fear or something of interest that comes from you, then of course he's going to come after you. But if there isn't going to be any interest in you, or if there's not going to be an interest that the creeper takes up in any character, then he's simply going to let you go. So the question then becomes, did he not find any interest in the cult members that were worshiping him, right? To where let's also talk about some of the green screen effects and the CGI for this film, because clearly enough, it seemed as though they ran out of money towards the end, because there was a very, very familiar graveyard shot in which we see all of our characters in the graveyard. They're walking around and it looks so hokey, so tacky, in a sense where, at least with the other films, we can safely say that even though Victor was behind them and everybody hates Victor's guts, at least then, during those points in time, we didn't see any of these CG green screen effects actually be the case, right? Because, well, everything was done practically, everything was done mechanically. So I would much rather take that than take what we saw happen in this film, only because towards the end, we also kind of see to where our heroes just coincidentally enough happen to remove this giant cross thing that they use as a way to impale the creeper in the throat with, you know, in which coincidentally enough, upon having to throw it off of this building, it just so happened to have stabbed the creeper right in the neck. So coincidence? I think not. I think that the way this movie was shot and the way this movie actually portrayed its narrative and its characters, it went as far as to glorify the creeper as being this celebrity-like mythos in which these weird people in this town seem to be having some sort of festival, or at least some kind of a creeper fest for him, which again, why in the world would you ever want to celebrate such a thing, knowing the fact that if this legend were to be true, then the creature could just simply come after all of you, right? In which the creeper did not do in this film, which again was something that I found to be very weird because although the creeper had just woken up from hibernation, there was a giant quote-unquote festival filled with people for him to eat, and he did not eat a single person, but instead he went after two rinky-dink side characters, including our main cast towards the end before having to die, and then, well, of course, being reborn, and that was it. Whereas in the original films, he went after anyone and everyone that he possibly could have, despite whatever it was that came from you, whether or not you were tall, skinny, short, white, black, fat, whatever the case may be. At least in the older films, he went after everybody and anybody, but here, he was walking around splinter selling his way into this festival. He got his little weapons back, and not a single person was eaten during that moment in time, knowing the fact that he just woke up and he's starving. So where's the logic in that, right? Now, I understand that the way they're going to do this film is they constructed it in a way where it's going to be a 1 out of a rumored 3 films. So in all honesty, if this is the best that we're going to be getting before we go into the other 2 films, then this is a huge pass for me. So if this is the best that they're going to do with a property such as Jeepers Creepers that I feel as though you could do so much with, then I am passing on the next films, only because it's embarrassing at this point to see how far down we've fallen as a fandom, to see where Jeepers Creepers is right now. And it's funny because a lot of people said at the time, okay, surely enough, it can't get any worse than Jeepers Creepers 3, right? Well, I think it's now safe to say that Jeepers Creepers Reborn is either on the same tier as Jeepers Creepers 3, or possibly maybe even worse than that. So the creeper was a dud. He tried to come off intimidating, but he wasn't. The characters were completely non-relatable. They were extremely annoying, and I think that if anything, you can kind of find yourself watching this film and not want to root for anybody. You didn't want to root for any of the protagonists. You didn't want to root for the creeper. I think that it's safe to say that when watching this film, you just want to see it end so you can get out the theater with, because with the way they executed this film and with the way they went about by trying to tell this narrative of the creeper being some sort of a urban legend, even though it is kind of insinuated that all of the films to some extent kind of interconnect, you know what I mean? No references to the cathedral, no references to, you know, any of the older cast members, nothing, right? No mention or reference of Jack or anything like that. The creeper just ends up waking up in the beginning. He's crawling on the ground, he's eating dirt or at least mud, which I can kind of understand only because if you've been taking a 23-year nap, you're gonna be starving for something, even if it means eating worms. So I understood that fact, but it looked so hokey, it looked so tacky, it looked so cheesy, and you really can't take this movie serious by any means. And I think that if all else, more money should have gone in having a bigger budget for such a property like this. But I also think that with the title Jeepers Creepers, the franchise itself will forever be stained by that title alone. So unless they end up calling it Creeper or something else, then maybe we might find ourselves having a much bigger budget studio take up the property and finally giving us the movie, or at least movies, that we've been wanting to see for such a long time. But by the end of all of this, I want to go ahead and get your thoughts and comments down the comment section below about this film. Did you guys happen to like it? Did you guys hate it? What were some of your biggest criticisms of the film? And if you just so happen to have thought that maybe this movie was better than Jeepers Creepers 3, then I want you guys to genuinely let me know as to why you guys think that is the case. Or if you think it's worse, then also again, let me know down below. There is so much more to be said about this film and just about the property and the franchise itself that I can't wait to show you guys and share with you on the channel. So again, if you just so happen to be new to the channel, then I do encourage you guys to head on over and smash that subscribe button and turn on all notifications by clicking on the bell icon. That way you guys never miss a single video that is ever posted onto the channel. Tune back in for more. Give this video a big fat thumbs up if you guys enjoyed and agreed with the premise of this video, because man, it's just really sad to see a franchise that I loved when I was a kid actually be turned into shit after so long. It's very disappointing, but will things change? I guess we'll have to wait and see. So with that being said, thank you all so much for being here, and I'll be seeing each and every single one of you down in the comment section below and in the next video. Take it easy, guys, and have a great day. Peace.